You must have had to do an enormous amount of preparation for that show.
Yes, yes. There was in the beginning. It seemed overwhelming. You know, the books to read and the stuff to try to get in mind. Partly because I didn't like to use a prompter even on the, and I either made it up as I went along, or ad-libbed it, or if there's something to read, I'd pick it up and read it, if a quote or something like that. And my eyesight wasn't as good then as it is now. I don't use glasses or anything, but my eyesight got better for some reason. And I vowed that I would not stay past noon if I had to get up at 4:15 in the morning. But I find myself there 5, 6 in the afternoon, still trying to get ready for the next, and then take work home and everything. But that shook down to where I didn't have to do it. And for one thing, I find you can do a very good interview on a book. Now, there are books I like to read all the way through. But if you have a good review, or 2 good reviews, the dust jacket, and an excellently written précis of the book, you can do as good a job as if you've read the whole thing. So there were little shortcuts like that would help, I think. And occasionally there was a book that I really want to read all of. But the preparation got a little less, partly because I found you have to know. You don't have to know the answers. You know, when NBC, incidentally, many years before that, had started a thing called the Wisdom Series, and I interviewed Frank Lloyd Wright for that. And up to that time, they had Sean O'Casey, and they had a young poet interview him. And they had, who else was on that? They had a short story writer that interviewed another literary figure. And now they're going to do Frank Lloyd Wright, and they're looking around for an architect to interview Frank Lloyd Wright. And some executive at NBC said, because it hadn't worked too well, said, why don't you get an interviewer to interview Frank Lloyd Wright? And so they chose me. And it was very good. And I didn't have to know the answers. He was the expert. I had to know the questions. And so I learned that about interviewing, too. And the fact that early on I found out interviewing is really nothing more than running down adverbs and prepositions. In other words, if I was interviewing you and had never met you before and didn't know you from a load of coal, and we're on suddenly live for 25 million people, I could make an interview. What I ask is all of the questions: who, what, when, how, where, why, and listen to your answers. And out of them would come, and the first question I would have to ask in that case is, who are you and why am I talking to you? You know, and then you get an answer to that, and then you ask, how long have you known, and all of those things. And an interview just unfolds without my knowing anything about you. So that was a great boon when I discovered that about interviewing.